Here from Jamestown in Chautauqua County. It's good to be back. This is actually my first time in Jamestown and in Chautauqua County as Majority Leader of the United States Senate. And one of the things I promise is that I will not, I'm going to stay just as vigilant about local issues as I always have. I have a little more clout as Majority Leader. I'll use that for Jamestown, for Chautauqua County, for the whole southern tier, and western New York. But I'm never going to forget, I'm continuing to do my 62 county tour. I did it last year, even though there was COVID, and I will do it, this is my 23rd year doing it. I've been to every county every year for 23 years, so that will continue. And I want to welcome our guests who you'll hear from. We have Eddie Sundquist, the mayor of Jamestown, Willie Rosas, the mayor of Dunkirk, Journey Gunderson, the great executive director of the Comedy Center, Sue Marker, she's the director of Child Care Council of Chautauqua County, Mark Geis from the Industrial Development Agency, the director, and Todd Tranum, who's the CEO of the Chautauqua County Chamber of Commerce. So I thank everybody for being here at the National Comedy Center. 10 years ago, I was here talking about the importance of revitalizing the train station. And now look what it's become. It's been a decade-long project for me and the people of the county. I guess I don't need my coat, do I? No. I need my mask. That's all right. That's all right. He'll take it. But I don't want to lose my Dingus Day mask here. Okay, there we go. Yep. So it's been a decade-long project for me, the train station, the Comedy Center, and everything else to help revitalize our downtown here in Jamestown. And one more thing I'd like to do before we get in the substance of this, I want to take a minute to honor our great friend Vicky James. I think she's laying in state right now as I speak. She was a pillar of the community, a legend in public service. Her time in the legislature, on the city council, had a huge impact on her constituents, and a role model for so many, she was. So she'll be missed, and our sympathies and prayers go to her family and her loved one. We know she's up there smiling down probably on this event. So thank you, Vicky, for all you have done for Jamestown and Chautauqua County, and I hope we'll be doing Vicky proud in what we're about to say. Because what I want to tell Chautauqua County is help is on the way. Help is on the way with $1,400 checks for the vast majority of residents of this county. Help is on the way with many more vaccines so that people can get vaccinated and go about their lives. Help is on the way with help for our schools so they can open quickly and safely. Help is on the way with money for our restaurants, which are suffering so much, and our small businesses, which are suffering so much. And I'm going to talk about each of these things in a few minutes. Help is on the way to our state and local governments, our county governments and our city governments as well. And by the way, they can use some of that help the museum, both the county and the city. So there's a lot of help on the way. The American Relief Package plan is probably the most, it's the largest piece of legislation to affect so many people in a time of need since the Great Depression. And it's probably just largest without looking at any other time horizon. It's the most significant piece of legislation to help the middle class and people struggling to get to the middle class since Lyndon Johnson's Great Society. It's of tremendous, tremendous impact. Whenever I draw these pieces of help write these pieces of legislation, which I was able to do in the first two bills as minority leader and had even a greater impact as majority leader, I always pay attention to New York. New York will get, between all our businesses and individuals and governments, etc., New York will get over $100 billion as a result of the American Rescue Plan. The total over the three bills is about $250 billion that we've been able to bring to New York. And I will never forget New York. New York's in my bones. So there are lots of different parts of this bill, and I'm going to talk about some of them in a few minutes. But specifically here, I want to talk about the subject near and dear to my heart, the National Comedy Center and the Reg Linné Center for the Arts, the Chautauqua Institution, and so many other organizations across the county are getting some help through the help for our independent venues, our live venues, our arts institutions that are of lifeblood here. As certain industries have left, we have found that there are new kinds of industries that create jobs, bring people here, and have people want to stay here and live here. And the arts is at the top of the list. So we've gotten, I pushed very hard. Oh, I gotta have my mask. I have a mask for everything. It's in the car.
Would you like a Comedy Center mask?
Yeah, that's a good one.
Who's got the Comedy Center mask?
I'll wear that. I had one for Save Our Stages. Okay, I'm going to put this on when I finish. Great.
I'll just start with it for you.
Great. Thank you.
There
Thank
you
you,
are.
Journey. Oh, this is nice. Good.
Never resist an opportunity to get the logo in there. Thank you.
Great. I got to stretch it. Okay, so what we did is any institution, any business, profit or nonprofit, that gathers people together really suffered during COVID. And in a few months, these places would go under. They had no money, no people coming, no income to pay the expenses, the employees, the rent, and everything else. And so I worked very hard to do a legislation called Save Our Stages, and that will now help independent venues like the National Comedy Center, like the Reg Linné Center, like the Chautauqua Institution, and so many other institutions. I'm proud to say that the SBA will begin accepting applications for Save Our Stages this week, and I have worked very, very closely with the agency and the new SBA administrator, Isabel Guzman, to make sure the program is set up quickly and ensures all of New York's hard-hit venues can get some help. The SBA has now updated, by the way, you'll want to know this, Journey. You got PPP, I presume. Now you can apply for PPP immediately if you want the second round, which we passed and is now extended through June. But you can use that money and then apply to Save Our Stages and repay them. So in other words, Save Our Stages is a much more generous and long-term plan. It's a grant that goes all the way up through September. But it's just starting the application, and many institutions need money right now, and the PP program, as we passed the second round, is ongoing. You can bring it up. No, that's the restaurants. No, the Save Our Stages is in my briefcase. Okay, well, then I won't use it.
We're 0 for 2 on that.
Yeah. No, we're 3. And that's Save Our Restaurants. We have restaurants here, so that's a good one. But in any case, these institutions needed help, so they can apply for PPP first, and let's say they get I'm just using numbers, $500,000 grant from the Save Our Stages. If you applied for PPP and spent $30,000 of that, you'd have to pay the $30,000 back out of the $500,000 and then do the PPP, and then do the Save Our Stages. So I'm sure many will do it. These live venues missed out in $9 billion in ticket sales. We have artists throughout the Southern Tier who depend on these venues in many different ways. 75% of their income went down the drain. And it's good to do this for 3 or 4 reasons. One, obviously, the economic impact. This museum, the Comedy Museum, has one of the greatest impacts on this county that we know. Second, all the employees who work here. It's been very hard for these institutions to keep employees. Have you had to lay off employees?
We did.
Of course, yeah. So they can keep their employees. Third, it adds something extra to the life of a community. It would be nice to have a department store here, but a department store is not something special like the Comedy Center, or so the Fredonia Opera House, or Shawbucks, or some of these other cultural institutions. And so they add something special to our lives that make younger people want to come here and stay here and live here and everything else. So it's important in a whole lot of ways. The grants are 45% of the gross revenue for 2019, up to $10 million, and they're very flexible. They can be used for rent and utilities and payroll. Don't have to lay off people. Mortgage obligations, payment to contractors, regular maintenance, taxes, operating leases, PPE, capital expenditures. All of these are available. So this is going to be a real, so to speak, shot in the arm for the Comedy Center and for so many other institutions. We made the funding flexible, so you'll have a lot of flexibility, Journey, in doing what you wish with it. Let me talk about the other things, the checks. I originally was the author with Stephen Mnuchin, the former president's Treasury Secretary, of the first CARES bill where we got $1,200 checks. They really were successful in pumping money into the economy. And so I wanted $2,000 checks, but Mitch McConnell was against them. We stayed on the floor of the Senate 4 days in December, and finally we got a compromise of $600. But I promised, should I become majority leader, I would move up the checks to $2,000, and that's what happened. And the checks go to any individual who makes below $75,000 a year, and any family at $150,000. So that's probably 90% of the families here in Chautauqua County will get it, maybe higher. And it's $1,400 a person. So if you're a mom and dad with 2 kids, you get a check for $5,600. That helps families. It helps families who are struggling and who have lost their jobs. But all families have struggled with schooling or with college or with transportation, so many different things, illnesses of relatives. And so this is a real help. And it's now here. And if you're in this room, raise your hands if you've already gotten a check, one way or another. About 3/4. If you don't have a direct deposit, it should come this week. If you don't have it by this week, then you ought to call me or one of your local officials and see. Now, checks is on the way with help is on the way with vaccines. We all know the way to get out of this crisis is to have most of America vaccinated. Between the December bill and the January and the March bill, we have made vaccines. There's enough vaccines available to every American, and they're free. No deductible, no co-payment, nothing else. And we've tried to make them available so that there are lots of places. I'm sure in Chautauqua County there are, who would know how many? A bunch, right? Yeah. How many are in Jamestown? How many places where you can get the shot?
About 3 or 4.
And in Dunkirk?
We had about 7.
7. So there's lots of places. We've made them available, not just you have to travel to the Bills Stadium or somewhere to get them. And they're free, and they're going to be so much available that in about 3 weeks, you'll just be able to show up at one of the places and get a shot if you're 18 or over. We expect that will happen by about May 1st, because there'll be enough vaccines for everybody. And that means by the beginning of summer, if everyone takes the vaccine, we could be back to regular life pretty much. And we have to do it quickly because there are new variants. And the variants won't work if you have the vaccine. But if you don't have the vaccine, these mutations, if there's a big enough population, multiply, and then there's more trouble. So please do it, and do it quickly. It's safe, folks. It's safe. My parents, praise God, are 97 and 92. They got the Pfizer vaccine, the 2 doses. They're fine. They didn't even have side effects. So if they can do it, everybody can do it. And I hope everybody will. So that's vaccines. Here's another thing that people don't know about that's in this bill. On the direct payments here, they have that there's going to be $233 million in direct payments for 93,000 households across Chautauqua and Cattaraugus counties. That's $146 million to 58,000 households in Chautauqua, 87 million to 35,000 in Cattaraugus. It's a lot of money. And that money goes into the economy. Some people use it to pay their debts that they've acquired over COVID, but even then, their new earnings they can use it for other things. But most people spend it at our stores, at our restaurants, travel, tourism. So it's going to be a real help to getting our economy out of the ditch. Now, here's another thing that's not well known. In addition to these checks, there's another way we're supplementing people's income so we can get the economy not only out of the ditch, but really roaring back. And that is the child tax credit and the earned income tax credit. Again, every family with the same income level, below $75,000 for a single parent who has children, $150,000 for a couple who has children, you'll get an extra $250 a month starting in July for a year per child. A little more if your child is under 6. First, that will take half the children out of poverty in America, in New York, and here in this county. When a child is born into poverty, they don't get proper food and nutrition. They don't get proper schooling. They don't get proper health care. They don't get proper housing. And by the time they're a young adult, their climb out of that ditch is very steep. So by giving them some extra dollars so they can get the kind of things that are the basic necessities if they're poor, it's going to take half of them out of poverty. And that's good for them and good for their families, but it's good for our society because this is a large number of people who will now be, can be much more productive and tax-paying citizens. It's estimated that 45% of the children in Jamestown, 47% of the children in Dunkirk, and 25% of the children in Chautauqua County live in poverty. But in addition, as I said, families up to $150,000 get it. There are so many expenses. There is child care. There's making up for school. There's so many things that average families have. Again, the intention here is not just to get us out of the ditch of COVID, but to get the economy really coming back strongly. So there are going to be people who lost their jobs during COVID who will never get them back. We want new jobs to be available. Things like that. State and local government. Education. Do we have the numbers for education, Jordan? I didn't see them here in this. Cat? No? Okay. There's enough money so that every school can open up by September, 5 days a week safely with the money they need to prepare for COVID-related things, and most schools can open up sooner, and they can use this money, which is generous, for summer school. All these kids who lost out because of distance learning, maybe they didn't hear in a county like this, people don't have Wi-Fi. By the way, that's another, well, I'll get to that in a minute, but they can do regular school over the summer, and there's money in there to pay for that. But direct aid to state and local governments is something I'm particularly proud of. We got the state enough money so that they don't have a deficit. So when the state government is giving any of you money, don't let them tell you they have a budget shortfall and they can't do it. They have money. The deficit was $5 billion this year, $10 billion next year. We got them a total of $23 billion. That's just the state. But here's the thing that makes our local governments very happy. When you give money to the state and say give it out to the local governments, they never see it. Ask these folks. Well, I insisted that 60% of the money go to the states, but 40% of the money go directly to the counties, to the cities, to the villages, to the towns. And so we have $75 million going to Chautauqua County, cities, towns, and villages. The county itself gets $24 million. The city of Jamestown gets $30 million. The city of Dunkirk gets $11 million. The smaller the entity, they get less, but they get some nice amount of money. And that can be used for lost revenues, which they have. That can be used for COVID-related expenses, which they have. But it can be used for many other things. It can help out businesses. It could promote tourism. So if the city of Jamestown, and I'm not making a plug here, Mayor, but I'm sure Journey would like to spend some of that money to pump up, let's say the vaccines are around by the summer, and you want to do a tourism campaign to come to the comedy center, you could use the money for that. Again, it's flexible and very, very helpful. We also got $64,000 for the Chautauqua County's airports, $32,000 each for Dunkirk and Jamestown. There's so much in this legislation. We gave money to the state, which will give it out to the localities to connect people to Wi-Fi. There are lots of areas in Chautauqua County that don't get Wi-Fi right now. I don't know if we have an estimate. Anyone have an estimate? County exec isn't here. But an estimate of what percentage of the county doesn't get Wi-Fi. I'm sure it's significant. There's special plans to do that. We need to get everyone connected to the internet. We won't get all of them with this money, but we will get some. And the pensions. A lot of our union retirees were going to lose their pension because of bad investment. That really breaks your heart. You put in money every 2 weeks and you say, hey, when I retire, I'm not going to get rich on this thing, but I'll live a life of dignity. And then it's gone. I had a big construction worker with tattoos all over his muscled arms, crying in my arms saying, I don't mind if I lose the pension from me, but it's my wife, my children, and my parents all depend on it. Now he's getting it. So that's a very good thing as well. So there's lots more in the bill. I'm not going to go on and on and on, although I wouldn't mind. I'm going to put on my Comedy Center mask. There we go. So we got Comedy Center and Dingus Day, two great Western New York traditions. And let me call on our mayor of the city of Jamestown, Eddie Sundquist.
Thank you, Senator. We very much appreciate you being here and joining us. You know, we've coming to Chautauqua County. I think the last time that you and I chatted, I had just gotten COVID, and you called me to wish me good health. So I appreciate you being here and joining us.
You all okay now?
Much better.
Good.
Much better. And vaccinated, which is even good. So wanted to just thank all of you for being here, for joining us today. Both the mayor of Dunkirk, our folks from Chautauqua County, the other our council members here, our council president, all joining us today.
Introduce them so we can...
Sure.
Yeah.
Yep, I'm happy to. We have our council president, Tony Doles, who is over here. We also have our other council members, Jeff Russell in the back. We have Marie Karuba over here. We have Tamu Graham Reinhardt, who's around here somewhere. There we go. We had Brent Sheldon, who I think may have had to leave. Yep,
Well,
wonderful.
thank you all for coming, and thanks for your good work, everybody. Thank you.
You know, we've seen the past 13 months some of the most devastating impacts in our small businesses and families. And the American Rescue Plan is an essential act on our road to recovery. The plan gives nearly, as the senator had mentioned, $30 million directly to Jamestown, one of the most consequential pieces of legislation for local governments ever. The city is currently formulating a plan to use this unprecedented sum to give an economic relief to our hardest hit businesses and cultural institutions, and invest in economic development to ensure that Jamestown comes out of this pandemic the strongest it's ever been. The money can be used for needed capital, replacing aging infrastructure, and it is our hope that we'll be able to create a city broadband network, ensuring every home and business in Jamestown has a low-cost, high-speed internet and a free Lifeline connection available to every resident. The reach of this massive legislation will be felt not only by local governments, but as we stand here today, and the senator mentioned, 45% of children in Jamestown live below the poverty line. Because of this plan, starting this summer, families will benefit from the new child tax care credit, helping afford child care and pulling millions out of poverty, something that we are all very, very excited for here in the city. And now more people than ever will be eligible for free and low-cost health insurance through expanded subsidies.
You mentioned that, yeah.
As a whole,
a person, you know, you can, if you were a your ACA, you pay $1,000 a month, which is really hard in general, let alone COVID. Now it goes down to below $400 a month.
It's incredible. It's absolutely incredible. Something we have never seen before. You know, this is going to allow our city to focus on growth and have a potential for the future, rather than just always focusing on shoestring budgets and maintaining the most basic services. We now have an opportunity to move forward. And I wanted to thank Senator Schumer again for his leadership in passing the bill. It is a bold vision for recovery, for our country, for our city. And I also would like to remind the senator not to forget us as the infrastructure bill comes along the way. We have some aging roads and bridges. We appreciate it, and we thank you for being here, Senator.
Thank you, Mayor. Appreciate it. Now we have Willie Rosas, the mayor of the great city of Dunkirk.
Thank you. I would like to begin by just congratulating our great senator, Chuck Schumer, on becoming the Senate Majority Leader. Rounds of applause for the senator. On behalf of all of the City of Dunkirk residents, I would like to thank our senator and his staff for bringing and delivering these much-needed stimulus funds to our communities here in Chautauqua County. I think it's important for everyone to know that while I am the mayor in the City of Dunkirk, I am also a part of a bigger team here countywide. And the senator and his staff are a part of that team. And to know that we can count on our senator to deliver these much-needed funds is a great feeling for me and the local government leader. So I also want to mention that his staff, Jordan,
Yes.
Regional Director, has been communicating with me throughout the process.
A Fredonia, raised in the city of Fredonia.
He has been communicating. We have been in communication right along throughout the process. He has been providing updates, and I think it's important because it allows us as leaders to plan accordingly and when we have issues that we're dealing with. We have many issues, as Mayor Sundquist mentioned earlier, infrastructure needs. We have upgrades that we need to do, but we also have to deal with the fact that this pandemic has caused major disruption in the progress that we have been seeing here in Chautauqua County. So these funds are very much needed. We appreciate the help, Senator. And again, I want to let you know that your staff are doing an excellent job out here.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mayor.
I want to let everyone know, again, that we work together as a team. Some of the funds that we get, we're pledging to work with the county and other communities on regional projects that will have positive impacts on the whole county as a whole. I also want to let the senator know that we continue to work with your staff for future funds that may become available.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. And now the great leader of the National Comedy Center, who we all admire, have faith in, and love, and that is Journey Gunderson. Here, take a picture of us with the
Oh,
man.
please do.
That's good.
Even if it wasn't the one you were looking for.
Well,
I made sure.
I found it. It's very comfortable also.
Oh, did everyone hear that? It's very comfortable and available in the gift shop.
That's why she's so good.
Thank you.
Among other things.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for being here. As we're talking about how we are enriching the lives of people in New York State and Chautauqua County and Jamestown, it occurs to me to share that we are in the final week of an 8-week opportunity in which the National Comedy Center opened its doors for free to Chautauqua County children. And I'm pleased to report today that I don't have the exact number from the weekend, but even with 1 week remaining, we've welcomed over 1,000 children and parents from Chautauqua County for free.
Great, great.
I want to thank the senator for being such a powerful advocate for live performance venues and museums everywhere. As the nation's official museum of comedy that tells the story of comedy, I'd like to address why live performance venues and comedy clubs are absolutely critical to the art form of comedy. Comedy clubs, if you don't know, are the gyms of the art form. No comic gets good without hundreds and more often thousands of sets on stage in front of a live audience. If there is not a healthy network of clubs and venues nationwide, many comics will never be able to make that leap into pursuing this full time. Without enough paying gigs, nights to work, opportunities for sets and stage time, countless artists won't ever quit their day jobs. I spoke to 2 comedy club owners just this weekend for whom this funding is absolutely critical. Mike Lacey, legendary owner of a legendary club, the Comedy and Magic Club in Hermosa Beach, California, opened his club in 1978 and now employs over 100 people in addition to the artists. He's got a reputation for being very artist-friendly. He's not just fearful of what will happen to the Comedy and Magic Club as a result of the pandemic, but he's fearful for the art form as a whole. He also points out the critical role that comedy plays in speaking truth to power, and there is no forum more welcoming of free speech and political discourse than the clubs. Let's not forget, and let's not forget again.
Let's not forget the page order of our...
Yes. Let's not forget that artists play an important role in our system of checks and balances. Another club owner I spoke with is Chris Mazzilli from the Gotham Comedy Club in New York.
Now you're getting closer to home. California, very nice.
Talk about a club as the gym. This is still where established greats like Seinfeld and Gaffigan go to hone their material to this day. 25 years ago, the club's opening night lineup included Dave Chappelle and Sarah Silverman, 25 years ago this year. Upon their reopening last week, Jerry Seinfeld performed and said, "In that moment, you're laughing. You've forgotten about every problem you've ever had." Laughter is more important than ever. Now, if you're one of many Americans who may have never been to a comedy club, and many Americans haven't, consider that the notion that the disappearance of live performance venues and clubs won't affect the quality of the sitcoms you're watching on television or the films that you go to see is like thinking that eliminating training facilities wouldn't impact the quality of professional sports. The clubs and the live performance venues are absolutely integral to this art form. So we can talk about the impact on the art form, but we can't not talk about the impact on the economy. Each of these clubs employs 50 to 100 or more people in addition to the artists. Guess where Sebastian Maniscalco honed his skill set and delivery for years before selling out a record-breaking 4 shows in one weekend in Madison Square Garden and headlining the largest festival, the largest Lucille Ball Comedy Festival in Jamestown's history. He honed his skills at both of the clubs I just mentioned. Live performance venues are a critical part of our nation's fabric, culturally and economically. And last, I'll close with a quote from the founding chair of the National Comedy Center Advisory Board and a donor to Jamestown's National Comedy Center, Louis Black. I'll do my best, Louis Black, and I will be sure to butcher his very thoughtful commentary. "I don't know if a tree falls in the forest if there's a sound, and I really don't care. I do know that without live performance venues, there won't be live performances. And without live performances, we lose a bit of our humanity and what joins us together as people. Live performance is what sustains our souls." And with that, please join me in thanking Senator Schumer for being such an advocate for live performance venues. Thank you.
Thanks, Jenny.
Thank you.
And yeah, it's by the way, these Save Our Stages bill, which I pushed and got into law, affects, of course, comedy clubs, but museums and there are all other kinds of live venues where people perform music. Maybe, I don't know if the Goo Goo Dolls or Natalie Merchant started in one around here, but probably. And it just is part of our life. It's estimated that about 5 to 10% of our upstate city's economies relates to the arts, the comedy clubs and all the others. The movie theaters, the independent movie theaters, which we also helped, and everything like that. So I thank Journey for her discourse on how important comedy clubs are. It's very, very important to know. Okay, now we have 3 other speakers. They'll be brief. We have Sue Marker, who's director of the Child Care Council of Chautauqua County, to talk about the child tax credit. Sue.
Thank you. Hi. So I'm Sue Marker, and I work for Chautauqua Opportunities, which is an anti-poverty organization. And I'm just going to push down a little bit about the child tax credit that Senator Schumer talked about. At the Child Care Council, we work with the families in Chautauqua County, we work with businesses, and we work with child care providers. And so today, as we talk about the child care credits, it's designed to help support families in Chautauqua County. But it changed from the old child tax credit. Instead of getting $2,000, you can get up to $3,600. And not only that, it's now they're going to pay you monthly, which makes a more predictable income for families and able to help
Right.
them.
I left that out. It's not just at the end of the year, but each month it's $250
or approximately, depending on your family size.
per
But-
child.
Per child. So that's really important as families are designing and developing budgets that they need to work within. Like Senator Schumer said, 24% of our children under 5 years of age in Chautauqua County live in poverty. 31% of these families are on SNAP, which, if you don't know what SNAP is,
They used to call it food stamps.
right. And that's being expanded too, and that's just to get a minimal adequate diet for these children. 35% of our families in Chautauqua County are single-parent families. So we have to look at all that. During the pandemic, at the worst part of the pandemic in April of last year, our unemployment rate was up to 15%, almost 16. Currently, it's at 9.6%, which has doubled in the last month. So if you have a family who's a single parent and has 2 children and is working a minimum wage job, which is approximately $11.80 currently, they're making about $24,500 a year. And food cost for that family is like $8,000. Child care for that family is almost $16,000 for 2 children in child care full time. And then you have housing, which is about $8,800, which is a total of $32,700. But they're only making $24,000. They're not making ends meet. But with the child care tax credit, this family will get up to $7,200 more per year, bringing them closer to being able to make ends meet. So the outcome of the child care tax credit is to reduce child poverty, which you said would reduce it up to 50%?
Yes, in the country.
In the country.
In New York State, too. Yep.
And that the children in the state move closer to the poverty line or above the poverty line. We know that child care is important to families. In fact, our saying is, child care keeps Chautauqua County working. Yay, child care. But we need to make sure that the child care structure that we have is sound and we don't lose child care providers.
By the way, in the bill, $40 billion nationwide for child care. New York gets over $2 billion of that.
$2 billion.
Yeah.
So we're hoping that with the child care task force that works in New York State, that we're going to find a way to make sure that child care providers are not working in poverty, and right now they currently work in poverty. They're the working poor, and that children get quality child care in their younger in their young ages when their brains are developing. So thank you
Well
for all
done.
your work with childcare. We
Both
appreciate
you and
it.
Journey outlined the specifics of one part of the bill and why it's so important, so thank you. That was
Thank you.
great.
Thank you.
Next, we have Mark Geis of the Chautauqua County IDA. Mark, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Senator, for coming here again. It always feels like Chautauqua County is a special place in your heart, I know, in Jamestown for sure. Well, I just wanted to say that, from the first round of stimulus money, we were able to do a lot. We got $10 million through the EDA. We've lent almost all of that out. We will have, as of the end of April, have that lent out. We've helped hundreds of businesses. And, with this new round of funding, certainly infrastructure, broadband, water, sewer, it's so important to us and really every municipality and every county to have development-ready sites. And we can't have development-ready sites without the appropriate infrastructure. We're working with the Visitors Bureau to make sure they can, do the marketing they need to bring tourists back to the area. And we're working with internet providers to look at those rural areas that are underserved or not served, so that money goes to the right place. So thank you for coming, sir, and really appreciate it.
Thank you. Great. And last but not least, Bob Tony from the Chamber of Commerce.
Thank you, Senator. Hello, everybody.
By the way, one of the things we passed, I mentioned it, but didn't spend, the Restaurants Act gives the same kind of relief to our restaurants that the Save Our Stages is giving to our artist venues and museums and things. It's a 6-month grant. So, and it's flexible. 1/3 of our restaurants estimated they would go under if they hadn't gotten any help.
Welcome, and thank you for your leadership. I want to talk just real briefly about momentum.
Great.
The start of 2020 was a time of momentum for Chautauqua County. Manufacturing continued to be the backbone of our economy. We saw continued expansion of our healthcare sector, and notably tourism was on a steady growth trajectory. In January 2020, the village of Fredonia won the Small Business Revolution and brought a national spotlight on the community and the county. In February, the National Comedy Center was named the best new museum in the country by USA Today. The winning streak continued, and into July, when the Chautauqua Institution was recognized by USA Today as the best small-town cultural scene in the United States. So we're eager to get back to winning. We're on a winning streak, Senator, and once again, I think we're in a place to harness that momentum through the support that you've been able to deliver through our national government. Our businesses are resilient. Many have innovated. They persevered this past year. However, sometimes that just is not enough. Support through the American Rescue Plan Act is going to be critically important to regaining our economic momentum. Programs such as the Restaurant Revitalization Fund, continuation of Payroll Protection Program, the Economic Injury Disaster Loan are all important resources for many of our businesses. And as we stand here today in this incredible facility, we recognize the economic challenges this attraction and a wide variety of attractions across the county have faced. And we recognize that shuttered venue operations grants will be extremely important to helping our attractions fully reopen. Again, we thank you, Senator. We look forward to working with you and to again harness the momentum we had here in Chautauqua County.
Thank you, Todd.
Thank you.
Great job. Okay. We'll now take questions on this subject. And by the way, just one final point. You could see how this touches.
You might want that.
Oh, thank you. You could see how much this bill touches almost every aspect of life in this county and across the country, and why it's so important. Okay. It's up to the city and the counties. They can determine it. We made sure that they had enough money not only to make up for lost revenues, but for other needs as well. Other questions? Okay. Any other questions on other subjects? Well, we're just, the president introduced it the last week, It's a big, bold bill that's intended, and you heard our mayors mention it, and I'm sure it affects everything else here. It does two things. It rebuilds our infrastructure. It does it in a greener way and in a newer way, but it deals with traditional infrastructure as well. It'll create thousands of jobs here in Chautauqua County, of good-paying jobs. So it's really important, because the intention here is not just to get out of the ditch of COVID, but also to get our economy going at a fast clip. Between 1970 and 2000, our economy grew at 3.5%. Wages grew at 3, 4, 5%. But in the 21st century, in the 2000s, it grew much more slowly. That's not good enough anymore. That's why more kids went into poverty. That's why there was higher unemployment. That's why wages were lower. We got to get that done, and this bill will do it. We hope we can work with our Republican colleagues in a bipartisan way, but we have to get it done, and if they won't work with us, we'll go forward on our own, using the reconciliation process. It's going to, again, we're not going to dictate, but it's the kind of large amount of money that big projects like taking down the Skyway are within reach. Before this time, it was such an enormous expense that how is the city and the county and even the state going to pay for it? There will be enough money to do that should Buffalo and Erie County choose to do it. And it emphasizes big, bold projects like the Skyway, tearing it, taking it down, or changing it. The salt cap was a dagger aimed at the heart of New York, and I'm going to do everything I can to get it repealed. Okay. Thank you, everybody. It's great to be back here at the Comedy Club. It's great to be back in Chautauqua County, and I hope everyone here in various aspects of the life of the county will not hesitate to call on me and Jordan if for any kind of help you need, both in securing these funds, making sure they're flexible enough for your needs, and for future needs. Okay? Thank you.